Welcome to Wisdom from the Aerial View, the podcast for those who wish to crush anxiety and find meaning and purpose in their lives. Hello, Doc. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Enid. Always great to talk with you and to see you.
It's always great to talk and see you. Talk to and see you. You know, I wanted to talk to you today about something that you know nothing about. I know we never rehearse these things. You don't know what's coming out of my mouth. And if it's not a slang or a curse, it's something interesting. But I want to talk to you a little bit today about a couple of things. I read a very interesting piece about a professional basketball player. I'm not a basketball fan, although I'm rooting for the Knicks. And his name is Anthony Edwards. Now, this is a story that happened a while back. And in fact, it happened at the beginning of May for Mother's Day. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because I have an idea about what we should talk about. And he talked about the fact that his mother died several years ago and how she was never far from his memory. And it said, this is from the Athletic. It says, whatever pain remains from losing her 11 years ago, whatever motivation he mines from her impact, remains locked away behind his rollicking aura. He doesn't talk about the great trauma he endured at 14 and still carries at 24. But on Sunday, the Minnesota Timberwolves star spoke to his mother with something greater than words. The toughness she bequeathed him, the belief she poured into him, the appreciation she taught him. Edwards' competitiveness has long been established. Sunday, though, Mother's Day, his fuel came from a special source. He deemed the occasion worthy of turning private hurt into public proclamation. I just wanted to win for my mom, he said. It was that simple. People across America celebrated their mothers with breakfast in bed and brunch, dates, flowers and candy, gifts and adventures, hugs and quality time. Edwards, meanwhile, connected with the void that can't be filled, thinking all day about his mother, who died from cancer on January 5th, 2015. His gift to her, victory, his first career win on Mother's Day. He represented millions who find hurt on this holiday. He proved that the pain that never leaves can transform into an internal fire. His performance and his story illustrated how resilience can be the best form of remembrance. For Edwards, Sunday marked 4,144 days since he lost his mother. But Edwards' dedication to the win for his mom following the series-saving performance reminded me of truths I needed to reclaim. That sorrow can also inspire, that a new normal will eventually arrive, that trauma and the tears they bring don't have to extinguish joy, which is rooted in knowledge and conviction, that making someone you love proud fulfills you even when they're gone. So why did I want to talk about this today? For a lot of different reasons. Number one, I think we ought to be more thankful about a lot of things. We ought to be thankful to our mothers, and we ought to be resilient. And just the notion that this young man, and he's 24, is still thinking about his mother 4,000 days later, but bringing joy to the fact that even though she's gone, you and I talk about, in fact, just before we got on, we talked about, we're not going to die, but we all do die. There's no question about it. But it's how we remember those when they are dead. So why do I want to talk about this today? I don't know. I just thought it was a lovely story and a lovely way to talk about the things we should be thankful for. This being Thanksgiving. Oh, wait, it's not Thanksgiving. But every day should be Thanksgiving.
Every day is Thanksgiving.
So I just wanted to talk about this and about the struggle that we have. Sometimes we talk about grief, you and I do, and you say that we shouldn't really grieve. And he doesn't. He turned his grief into joy. So, I don't know. Just wanted to talk about that.
That's great. I love the story.
Yeah.
You know, for him, he lost his mother at 14. Now, we've lost our mothers, but
Yes.
you know, we were much older. We were grown-ups. Losing your mother at 14, that's really tough.
It's tough.
I admire the guy. I know who he is. I
Yes.
follow basketball somewhat. I don't know anything about this, obviously. I'm going to guess he's not alone in the NBA or in the professional ranks of young men who have lost their mother at a young age. So I think it's great that he remembers her. I think he's playing for her, but I think it's even better that he has taken that what would have been grief and the memories of his mother and constructed something quite positive, which is exactly what you're supposed to do or what you should do. So bravo to him. I'm sure it makes his life. I mean, imagine this. So you have a guy like that, loses his mother at 14, obviously a very talented athlete.
Yes.
She had inspired him enough to keep him going so that he didn't quit playing basketball. He didn't just throw up his hands and, drop out of school, join a gang, whatever a lot of young men could do at that age who have no mother. But he didn't, right? So whatever she taught him during those 14 years stuck. And he kept going. And now he's created quite a life for himself. And he's only 24. I mean, he's a kid still, right?
Yeah.
So I give him a lot of credit for that, and mostly for the realization that taking a memory and your lessons from your mother and not letting the absence make you a victim and saying, oh God, what am I going to do? I'm all alone. Right. What am I going to do? So I give him a lot of credit. You know my story, not quite his story, but my dad got sick when I was 19. And I always say, people say, well, when did he die? And I say that he died the day that he found out he had cancer. Because that's really what happened. Yes, he had surgery. He had mostly downs, a lot of hospitalizations, a short period of ups, just a few months when he felt actually okay enough, but he never felt great. And the whole thing took 18 months and that was it. And so at age of 19, I learned about this, and 18 months later, he was gone. I think I just turned 21, or I was 21 and a half, something like that. And my mother, because we had no money, had to sell our house to have money to live on. And then she actually moved to another state. So 21, I was completely on my own. And when I say completely on my own, I'm not kidding. There was no safety net. There's no, if it doesn't work out, I can always go home. There was no home to go to. There was nobody to pick up to pay my bills if things didn't work. That was it. So who saw that coming? I mean, you knew me as a kid, and did you ever think, that's what's going to happen to Mark? No, of course not. It's unforeseeable. And so at that point, I had a choice, right? I could kind of fall apart and just wander aimlessly and hope for the best. And my dad even told me before he died that I wouldn't be able to go to medical school because we didn't have any money. So, which was true. We didn't have any money, but medical school was the least of it. I don't have any money. How am I going to pay my bills? And I worked every summer. I worked during times. I worked actually for a couple of years before I went to medical school, got some money, and then went to medical school. Was very fortunate to get a scholarship that covered my tuition. Then I worked jobs I borrowed money, and I worked some jobs to be able to pay my way through. So, but nothing compared to what he went through. This is nothing. He was 14. I was, at that point, 21. Big difference. So the point is, you have a choice. And it's funny, I think I've also told you this, Enid, that never in my life did I ever think it wasn't going to work out. Never, ever, ever did I think it wasn't going to work out. And I'm sure people who were looking at me thinking, oh, it's not going to work out. Forget it. He's never going to medical school. Who knows what's going to become of him? But from my vantage point, it was like, I miss my dad, and I guess I'm by myself, and my mother wasn't in a position to help me at all. She had enough trouble keeping her head above water. So, but my attitude was, it'll work out. I don't know how. I don't exactly know why, but I just always assumed it would. So we have a choice. We have a choice in our lives. And when we talk, you said I don't, believe in grieving, but that's not what you meant to say. I know what you meant to say. That you grieve for a short period and then you move on.
Right, exactly.
You definitely move on because you're missing the point if you don't. So I read an article today too. So what do you think of that?
Oh, I didn't even know you could read. But go ahead.
I can read. Okay. And it was very timely, amazingly enough.
Okay.
This is what I call a Franklin Rock moment, when the mystery of the universe is suddenly and unexpectedly revealed. Something happens, you go, whoa, that's quite a coincidence, except, probably not. And I read an article written by a doctor, a retired woman doctor, who had lost her husband had had a knee replacement surgery a month earlier, and it was doing fine, and suddenly had a pulmonary embolus 4 weeks later and died.
Oh,
And, for her, it was a tragedy. I'm going to guess at that point he was in his 60s. She doesn't really say, but trying to put the pieces together. I'm going to guess somewhere in that ballpark. So not 14, not very young, but not super old. And she wrote this article. It was very heartfelt, but she didn't write the article like Anthony Edwards. She's not quite handled this grief, and it didn't happen yesterday. I'm going to say it's at least a couple of years. It's a couple of years. I think she mentioned it was a couple of years. And I'm thinking, okay, now, this isn't, I don't tell people what to do, but this is not a great idea, right? So you can remember like Anthony Edwards did and celebrate his mother and do things in her honor. So if for him, winning a game was a way for him to honor her, probably because he knows that would have made her super happy, right?
Sure.
So I think that's great. It's if that's your gift to somebody, you want to do something, work as hard as you can to do something, that's fantastic. This woman, on the other hand, was not nearly over it.
What do you mean? What was she still grieving? What was she doing?
She was still grieving in a lot of ways, yes. And I was thinking, okay, it's 2 years. Now, again, I don't want to sound harsh. Sometimes even when I listen to myself, I think that's a little harsh. But it's not meant to be harsh. It's meant to say every life is individual. It's like the Kraft American cheese. Each slice is individually wrapped. That's how life is. So we attach with other people, but in the end, it's a solo journey during which you interact with many, 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 many people who help you, who create these relationships. So I don't want to say you always want to stay in your wrapper. No, you got to get out of your wrapper. But at the end of the day, it's a solo journey, and you use these interactions and the relationships and these events in your life to create that story of your life, to write that novel that is your story of your life. And so you remember, you embrace, but you don't grieve. You grieve as short a time as you possibly can. For some people, it could be a month. Some people it might be 6 months. But whatever it is, try and keep it as short as you possibly can, because it detracts from your mission. Just because you lose somebody doesn't mean your mission is now forgiven. That, oh, you know what? Sorry, you've had a tough time. You don't have to complete your mission. No, everybody has to complete their mission as best they can. So relationships are going to come and relationships are going to go, and some are super important, like your parents or your spouse or your best friend or whatever, your relatives. But we talked about how all relationships are important. Some are clearly more important and more special to you. And you have to view them from the perspective of the aerial view, that they aren't, just like you're on a certain number of records in the jukebox of time from the moment you're born to the day you die. That's called your lifespan. All those records are your lifespan. They too have their lifespan. They too start on a record and end on a record. That's their lifespan. Your lifespan and their lifespan interact for a certain amount of period of time. It could be minutes. It could be years, or many, many years, depending on whether it's your parent, spouse, but whatever. But these are separate events. These are separate lifespans. And so you are not relieved of your responsibility to fulfill your mission in your lifespan, no matter what happens in terms of loss. So the sooner you can get over grief, the better for you, the better to move you forward along the path that you are required to take in your life.
But the other thing I liked about the article was that he pays tribute to his mother all the time. His mother's always with him. And I thought about, that Mark always talks about that nothing ever ends. We have the jukebox of time. And so his mother, in many respects, is still with him.
Of course.
Isn't she? Yeah.
Of course. But what he's doing is different than grieving, right?
Yes.
He's not saying, I can't play ball tonight, guys. I'm just too sad, right?
Right.
He's saying, I can't have any more relationships because I'm just too sad. There's no point in my living my life because I'm just too sad. He doesn't do any of that. He says, I embrace my mother. I cherish my mother. I cherish those moments we had together. And as you know, we are still having together. That's the way the world works. Those moments never are extinguished. They're always alive and active. So he's embracing them and using them to move himself forward in his life. And he's only 24. So I look at a guy like that. I don't know anything about him other than what you've told me and the little bit I've watched him in the past. And assuming that's really his trajectory in his life, and that's truly his attitude, he's going to have a fantastic life, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got something very important figured out. He understands. You take what you've been given from your relationships, incorporate the good ones, the good parts into your life, reject the bad parts, and move forward along your own individual path. And use those things also to impact other people. So at 24, he's probably already impacted many people, and hopefully he will have the chance to impact many, 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 many more in a positive way, using the lessons he learned from his mother. So he's got it right. I mean, as far as that article, as much as we know about him,
Yes,
that's
right.
great. Good for him, right? Good for him.
Let me go back to you for a minute because the story of your dad is really a remarkable story. So he dies, and you and your mother and your sister are left. Now, what do we do? And so there's a resolution that your mother had, and that was to leave and to do whatever. And then you were left to make a choice, not a right one or a wrong one, but a choice. What do I do? How did you, at the age, it doesn't matter if you're 14 or 21, how do you in your own head rationalize, what do I do? How do I make the choice? What choice am I going to make? And at the time, did you really think that there is really no wrong choice? I'm just going to make a choice?
Well, I always knew I wanted to go to medical school, but it was far away at this point. I mean, I had a college degree. I had no money. I hadn't gotten into medical school the first time around, as I told you, because I was protesting the Vietnam War, and that didn't go over too well with the guy who wrote the letter of recommendation. But that's okay. That worked out absolutely fantastically also. It gave me time to spend a year with my father when he was ill. I worked in a hospital. I'd go from the hospital I worked in as an orderly, which is basically the lowest level person in the hospital, to go to his hospital. He was in the hospital a lot in those days. We don't do that anymore, but he was in the hospital a lot. So I was in one of two hospitals almost all the time. And so in terms of my choice, the question you're asking me, I didn't look at it as a choice. I never thought, what should I have thought? I just knew I had to continue along my road and pursue what I wanted to do. And I would figure it out. Like I said, it never entered my mind that it wasn't going to work out. I would just figure out a way to do it. I would just, whatever it took, I was just going to do it. Failure, it's not that failure wasn't an option. It was that failure never entered my mind. It never, ever, ever entered my mind. I never thought it wasn't going to work out. And I don't know where that came from. I wasn't a particularly tough kid. I was the smallest kid in our school, as you know, or pretty close. I was the youngest. Guy. Yeah, so smallest guy, right. Smallest guy and the second youngest, I believe. And so people in our grade were a year and a half older than me. And so
won't rub it in that I'm that much older than you. Keep going.
Well, at any rate, but this is the story of the reason I say that is because I wasn't some kind of super tough captain of the football team who could handle anything. No, I was just, small kid who, who was always never saw myself as particularly strong or mentally tough, for sure. Never thought of myself as mentally tough, ever. But here I was. Oh, well, if I wasn't going to be mentally tough, what was I going to do? So I didn't know I had to become mentally tough. I described that period of time, and I'm not looking for sympathy, believe me, but as if somebody pushed me off a 100-foot platform into ice cold water. That's how I envisioned that moment. It was it was the turning point of my life. It was, when somebody says, when does your childhood end and your adulthood begin? Most people say, well, I don't know, probably around this. I can tell you the second it happened. It was when we got the phone call from the hospital, my dad had passed away. That's when it happened. That's when I went from being a kid, somebody's taking care of me, looking after me, to being, and I was 21 at the time. I wasn't a kid by people really taking care of me, but the whole idea that I had, a family to support me and somebody to count on. That was the end. That was it. From that, I got pushed off the cliff into the cold water with God saying, good luck. I hope you know how to swim. Right. And, I had a few tough months where I had tremendous anxiety, panic attacks, but I just did it. And I look back now and I realize that I went from being the person who I thought needed help to the person who was going to spend his entire life helping other people. Right. That was the transition. And so
was it a conscious decision?
No, of course not. Who volunteers for that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Nobody volunteers for that, right? Or maybe some people. I mean, there are some brave people, like people go into the military. Today's, we happen to be, a Memorial Day period. And so there are people who are very brave and do volunteer for that. But I wasn't one of them, honestly, at that point. I was not particularly courageous. But, this is what happens? God pushes you off a cliff, you end up in the icy cold water, then you got to sink or swim. And why would, to me, there wasn't ever an option that, okay, I think I'll just sink. No, I'm not going to sink. I'm going to swim. I don't know how. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. And there were moments where I thought, oh God. I remember, I'll tell you a story about that. I was, now it's a couple of years later, I'm in medical school and I have no money, right? So I get the scholarship fortuitously for the tuition. I borrow money from a bank for my living expenses, and I combine that with working over the summer and working on between the vacation periods in medical school, Christmas and so on. So I lived in a tiny little studio apartment, basement apartment in Brooklyn, in a pretty so-so area. So I could afford, and I had gotten a flat tire. I got 9 flat tires in 1 year. That's a true story. And so now I had to pay my bills. I had a car insurance payment, I had a rent and utilities, whatever. And I didn't buy a single thing because I didn't have, other than food, because I had no money. I never bought a shirt, a pair of shoes, nothing. That was not going to happen. So I get a flat tire, I go buy a new tire, which was, at that point, whatever it was costing those days. And okay, fine. I pay for the tire. I come home. The next morning, I wake up. The tire is flat. I'm parking on the street in Brooklyn. Right. I think, oh, he put it on wrong. It's a faulty tire. So I change another tire, and I drive back to the place. And the guy says, somebody slit your tire.
Oh.
I look at him and he goes, and that's I can't help you with that. It's not a fault of tire. Somebody slit your tire last night with a knife. And I look at him. I go, I don't have any money. And he looks at me and he goes, this is again the grace of God, right? He looks at me and he says, you know what? Let me submit it as a warranty that you hit that there was something on a curb, and there was a defect in the sidewall, and I'll give you another tire. Mm-hmm. So that's kindness, right? He didn't know me from the hole in the wall. He didn't have to do that. Yeah. Who am I? There are moments like that you just realize there's something going on here, right? Yeah. And then you realize, okay, you got to remember that somebody treated you with unbelievable kindness for no good reason. Okay, you have a debt. Boom. On the ledger, there's a debt. Help as many people as you can because people are helping you, right? So that stuck in my mind at that moment. So I think getting back to the story of how we started with the story with Anthony Edwards, you can take these moments and just turn them around. Don't grieve. Don't become a victim. Don't lament. It was always supposed to be this way. This is the way where all time exists. It was always going to happen. I was always going to lose my father at a young age. Anthony Edwards was always going to lose his mother at even a younger age. Okay, you have a life to live. The gun goes off. You're born, the gun goes off. Spend a few years learning how to talk and walk and things like that, and then get moving, right? Get moving along your path. Pay attention to the people that help you. Remember that you don't do this alone. Your mission is to help as many people as you can. And there are going to be people who are going to help you along the way. So do what Anthony Edwards did. Learn from this experience. Okay, nobody wants to lose their mother at 14. I didn't want to lose my father really essentially at 19. Nobody wants that. That's the way the story happens to be written. What are you going to do about it? You still have your own individual piece of sliced American cheese that you are, right? You have your own life. You are not relieved of your responsibility to fulfill your mission, to become the person of substance who can make a positive impact on as many people as possible.
So the article you read written by that woman doctor, she obviously can't put it aside. She can't go on. And so in the article, does she almost admit the fact that she's just still grieving, or what's the purpose of the article? What was her point?
I think her point was about how to deal with loss and memories and thinking about those you loved. And it was very touching, but I was actually going to look up our contact info because I was going to contact her. Uh-huh. I just read this today because I don't think she's paralyzed. I think she has moved forward, but you could still see there's this anchor, right? Yeah. That's holding her down. And it's, I don't like to say it's wrong. I don't like to be dogmatic like that. I don't want to tell people how to behave and how to feel, but a better way is, let me just say there's a better way for you and for her and for everybody else. There's a better way. Take that part. It was always going to happen, right? It was always going to be this way. It's part of your story. It was always going to be on page 273. You weren't going to avoid it. Okay, so what are you going to do with the rest of the pages of your story? You're going to sit around and think, It could have been so great. My life could have been something else. He was going to retire. We had so much to look forward to. We were going to travel the world. Okay, maybe you were. So what? Now your life is different. It's not worse. It's just different,
So
right?
if you were to contact her, Mark, how would you even broach the subject? What would you say to her? All right, so you pick up the phone, whatever. What do you say to someone like that? Do you say, snap out of it? What do you say?
No, never say that. I would say, tell me about your relationship and tell me about your husband. And I'd let her talk about him. And I said, that sounds beautiful. So, what did he think of his life and your life? And what did he expect? What did he expect was going to happen? And what would he want for you? And how would he look at this? Would he say, yes, think about me all day long, every day, and, limit your happiness, limit your joy, always keep a little sadness in your heart. Do you think that's what he would say? And she's likely to say, of course not. And I say, okay, well, you have your life. Your life doesn't end when your loved ones. It sounds terrible. When I hear myself say these things, it sounds terrible, but it's just unfortunately true because we don't understand. We have to understand why we're here. We have to understand the purpose of life, why we're here, what we're supposed to do. We have to understand the perspective, the aerial view that tells you, don't get too caught up in yourself. Don't take your own life too seriously in the sense that it's not all there is. You're in very much, in a sense, a cog in a wheel. You do have a purpose. You're part of the greater whole. You are not relieved of your responsibility. Hold the memories tight. Smile. Think about them. Remember, they're still happening. That's why I talk about the jukebox at time. The fact that we never lose anybody. Anybody who tells you that that's not true, we lose people, they're gone, is wrong. Flat out wrong. We never lose anybody. How can we if the moments in the past are just as alive as the moments now? It's impossible. You cannot ever lose anybody. You don't lose the time you're together. You don't have the moments together on the records that you don't share. You only have the ones that you did share, but you still have those records forever. Use them to move you forward. Use them as an impetus, just like Anthony Edwards did. What is he doing? It's I won't even say it's genius. It's more than genius. It's wonderful, right? Good for him, right? Good. Yep. Teach as many people as Anthony, tell as many people as you can. At 24, you have figured out something unbelievably valuable. It's going to set your life on a wonderful course. And I guarantee you, Anthony, that your words and your attitude are going to affect so many people. You are going to initiate a cascade of events in many people's lives that will go on and affect other people and other people. And you have no idea the impact you're going to have on the world going forward. Today, tomorrow, a decade from now, 100 years from now, this effect you're having by doing this is tremendous. So good for him for writing the article. Good for him for talking about his mother way and embracing his time together and using that to move forward and to help other people move forward. Bravo.
So let me end it with Anthony, because I think it's valuable. Edwards works like a man familiar with struggle, yet smiles like a man who refuses to be conquered by it. The older you get, the more mature you get, said Edwards, who scored only 44 points. Only 44 points on that Mother's Day game. But they lost. They lost to Denver in the playoffs. When the win that day was secured, he raised both fists. He'd spent all he had, and it got the job done. Mother's Day gift delivered. After he said all he wanted to say about his mother, Edwards shifted the attention to his teammates and the victory they earned, and the depth he possesses, the complicated essence of the young man who endured, returned to its private place, compartmentalized, sanctified even, where memories of moments and lessons give him strength and perspective. And that's where we'll keep it. Because while losing a mother stains the heart, the love a mother lifts the soul. It's true, isn't it? He thanked his mother, but he thanked his teammates. And that's what you said. It's about relationships. It's about something larger than ourselves.
And his impact by talking to his teammates, I can tell you what's going to happen. He brought this to his teammates. You don't think that impacted some of his teammates? Of course it did. They're all the same age in general, right? They thought about that. What are they going to do? They're going to incorporate some of that into their lives. Maybe it'll keep them from making a wrong decision or take a different course. And maybe they'll tell somebody else or their kids or their friends. And this cascade of events that we create whenever we make a decision, a choice, or any action on our part creates this cascade of events that goes on ad infinitum. It goes on and on because then that person affects the next generation and so on. It's not just this is going to work for a week or a month, or this goes on and on. So that's the way the world works. That's why you can't relinquish your responsibility to continue along your mission, because every decision you make, every choice you make, every action you take is going to create this cascade of events that's going to impact the world going forward. You can't you can't be stuck with memories of the past. You can embrace them, you can learn from them, you can love them, they can fill your heart, and it's okay to feel sad sometimes. We've lost between us 4 parents, right? And we think about them, right? All the time.
All the time.
But the reason I think about my parents is to be grateful, like you are, for them, and to take what I've learned and move forward and create that impact for the next generation, for my kids, for my grandkids, for my patients, for people I meet on the street. Everywhere. That's Anthony. That's what Anthony Edwards is showing people. It's a great example from a 24-year-old who somehow figured it out.
You bet. And with that, I thank you for an interesting conversation. And remember, it's always Mother's Day.
And I thank you because that was a great. Even though you never tell me what we're going to talk about, you never disappoint. So thanks, Enid, and thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Peace.